Hey everybody, it's Anna. Welcome back to my Fluid Art channel and thank you so much for stopping by. So I'm going to paint another feather today. Last week I painted a feather and it turned out so well I just thought I have to do another one right away. Now a lot of times when people paint feathers they swipe it. They use little bits of paper towel and they sort of swipe out all the feathery bits. But that's not how I'm doing it because I've discovered that you can make a really cool feather shape using a modified angel wing pour. So you'll see how that works in a second. To do a feather, you only do one side of the angel wing pour instead of both sides. So you can check the link that's down in the video description if you want to see more details about what is an angel wing pour, how do you do this feather pour. Anyway, last week I painted a seagull feather, black and white on a blue background, and it looked really cool. So today I want to make kind of not exactly a match set, but one same size 10 by 20 inch canvas, but more earth tones colors. So I've got more sort of browns for the feather and a lovely sort of pale sage green for the background. So, and I'm going to do it the other direction. So instead of the feather having like the straight side here and the feathery parts going this way, I'm going to have it straight side here, feathery parts going that way. So that in theory, the two could go together. We'll see. I think they could look cool together. So I'm going to do kind of like a hawk or an owl or a turkey feather. That's my inspiration. And often they have like barring stripes across the feather. And I just know based on like the physics of how the paint pours out of the cup, I'm not going to be able to get exactly those stripes. But I do want to try to get a mix of colors. So I have some burnt umber here, that's going to be my dark, and I do have some pure white, but I also have this sort of yellowish creamy color and this kind of reddish pale brown color. These are both custom blends, and my background is also a custom blend, so I'm not going to give you all the details. For this green, I was just like chucking different things in the cup to make the absolutely perfect color. Anyway, so I'm not exactly sure how those colors are going to work in the feather. I think it's going to make a nice design, but it's going to be too hard to predict exactly how it's going to flow out. All right, my paint is all mixed with Floetrol. It is mixed to a medium consistency. So what that means is it flows easily off the stick, but it leaves a pretty large soft mound. So it's not crisp ribbons, it's soft ribbons. But it is not super thin. It has some body to it. And I want that body so that all of these layers can stay really neat and we don't get too much blending and spreading of colors. And then I have a 2-chamber split cup from Resin. And I'm going to be propping up my canvas to let the paint flow out and then spinning it to stretch. And it should be a lot of fun. So let's make a painting. I'm going to start by filling my split cup. So this background color is going to go into the left side of the split cup. I'm going to fill it up about halfway because we don't need tons of paint for this in the cup. And then for the other side, I'm just going to make some sort of small layers with some of the colors. I want mostly the lighter colors, and I'll have the dark brown just up at the tip. I think that's still going to give plenty of dark brown in our design. But just small layers, and then once we get a little closer to the top, I'll add some more patterning to try to make some designs, some barred and striped designs. Okay, we're pretty close to even here. So now we've got lots of sort of stripes on the top, which means as we pour it out, we're going to get some different colors coming out. Now I'm going to add a little bit of the dark brown right up here to the front, because I want it to be the first thing that comes out, and that's all I need really, I think. Based on the last painting where I said this isn't a lot of black and then it dominated the whole feather, I'm just going to use a smaller amount of that, and then I'm going to add a couple of just like little drops of it. And that drizzled more. I was intending for drops, but what we have is just a little bit of the dark kind of up here on the top so that hopefully it'll flow out with the other colors in some layers. Yeah, and our two sides are nice and even, which is great. I'll add just a little bit more white. Perfect. So I'm going to turn my canvas sideways because I always like to pour from the side. That's easier than trying to do it this way. So as I pour, the color obviously needs to be in the middle. So I'm going to pour slightly off center. Instead of pouring right down the middle, I'm going to pour slightly off center. And I'm going to pour into a puddle of green paint so that all of these colors can just kind of float on top of it. And I'm going to pour in this center section. I'm not going to start up here because I want my design to end up here and then be able to stretch to fill the canvas and not end up going off both sides. So let's pour out my puddle here. So it doesn't need to be a huge puddle, just needs to be something that's going to catch the colors and help them flow down the canvas. And we'll add more of that base paint later. So I'm going to tilt this up all the way onto the top of this cup, which will provide a gentle slope so that as I pour this out, everything will just flow nicely, making that feather design. Let's go ahead and pour. All right, that's propped up. I'm going to try to get my cup as close, the spout as close to the canvas as possible. And just move back and forth. We've got a lot of patterning here. That's great. Okay, we don't have as much color patterning down here, so I'm going to go ahead and slow down and stop the pouring. Lovely! That looks really cool. I love how we have sort of the bold patterning up at the tip of the wing feather, and then it sort of softens out as we move down here. I think that's really cool. We do have some brown that's come around here along the sides. That'll be very easy to scrape, so we'll take care of that in a minute. I'm going to torch really quick as it's stretching. I mixed my paint today, so it does still have some air bubbles. I'm going to help this stretch just a little bit more. Trying to get that feather right to the center. Okay. And then we'll bring sort of the weight of the paint back so it's not all on this side. And that is pretty centered, you know, this side to that side, so that's great. Love it! Other than removing this brown, which I am going to do now, I don't know that there's anything that has to happen immediately. We want to get all that off there and then wipe any residue so that none of that brown comes in and smears into our background. Torch again. All right, let me get out my little spinner so we can start stretching this. And now I will add some more of this base paint around all the sides because we want plenty of paint there so that it can spread and flow easily. And I'm gonna bring it over here. Can't tell if that's a lump or not. I'm gonna bring it to the corners and get those covered just to make it really easy. There's definitely a lump of something. Discovering quite a lot of lumps here in my base paint. That's not so great. At least I'm finding them now. All right, now I do realize my feather is weighted more towards this side than to this side. So I am actually going to slide it right from the start a little bit off center. So more of the paint wants to flow this way. But this side is going to probably get trimmed down to be just a quill anyway, so it doesn't really matter if we lose some of it. All right, I'm going to give this a gentle spin to just start the paint flowing and see what our design looks like. Let's do it. That's looking great. It's not spreading too fast. That's good. I'm going to spin it again. We'll just keep stretching it. So this feather curves around more than the other one did, which is still quite a cool look. I'm going to go ahead and add the base paint here along the side, just so that I don't have to fight to get that covered. And up here, still want to spin it to even all of that out, but get a start on it. Let's go ahead and spin it again. All right, we're really close. I would love this to get about another inch closer to the top. We'll spin it the other direction just for fun. All right, I think that looks great. So this is the step that turns a cool looking feather into a really nice looking feather. I'm going to scrape away a portion of this design so that we can just have a bare quill at the end. So I'm going to start down here at the bottom and just kind of bit by bit work my way up. All right, there's a big chunk of it gone. Let's fill that back up with base color and then carefully spread that around. You don't want it to move in and like flood your design and warp everything. Okay, so I have a narrowing There's still too much here. What I did last time around, which worked pretty well, was to push the green base coat kind of over the design, and so start to curve that design in the direction that I want it to curve. Oh, nice. Yeah, that worked great. But then you have to come back in and fill it in with some more of the base color. Otherwise, as the paint kind of evens itself out, your design will just flow right back to where it had been. I wonder if I could do kind of a similar thing here. Push that design in. It actually worked pretty well also. I'm going to pull some of the green in here to make it look kind of jagged and stuff like the other stuff did. Well, I was trying to blend these lines in, pull them more towards the quill, but it just kind of made everything get mixed up. So that might be something that I have to fix with a brush. I'm not sure. I'm loving this shape and design. I do think that the quill is going to need to be a little bit touched up once it's dry, just like I did with the other one. And I would love to spin this one more time to get some of this paint down here to even itself out, because it's a little bit lumpy. And that's not something that's easy to do with a palette knife. So I'm going to shift it back, because I want more of it now going off this end. All right, let me give this a spin. All right, yeah. So the quill definitely stretched here, which is good. I like a nice long quill. Yeah. So it'll take just a little bit of brush work once this is dry, but for now, I think it's done. Let me give you a close-up. Okay, this turned out super cool. Here's the top. I love how patterned that is. It is definitely not horizontal stripes, but it is really cool patterning. So that's neat. And then I just love all those layers coming down to here. So you can see there where I tried to drag my palette knife through those lines and extend them towards the quill. It didn't work so well, but I can clean those up to an extent with a brush. And then we've got our nice little quill tip here. So this is really cool. Definitely it turned out slightly different in shape and in color patterning than the last feather, but on the whole it is a design that can be reproduced. So I'm happy with that. Let me take you back when this painting is dry and I'll do the touch-ups. Alright, it's all dry and done and finished. So I did do some brush touch-ups. Let me show you what I did. So up here at the top of the feather, some of the very top tips were curving around and they were very sort of spiky, and I thought that was a little distracting. So I rounded those out a little bit because a lot of owl feathers and hawk feathers, they are more rounded at the tip. So I thought that gave it a more natural shape. I just think this patterning is so cool in there. And then down here at the bottom, where I had used my palette knife to try to bring some of those lines more towards the quill, I just used a brush of my lighter and my sort of medium brown color to just accentuate those lines and make those more clear and defined and blend it all together. And then on the quill section, I added a little bit of white and then some of that creamy yellowish tan on top because the plain white just looked too stark, to make it look more like the tip of an actual feather. And I pulled it up in the middle there because that's usually where the quill comes. It's not exactly on one side, it's sort of a little bit in the middle. But overall, I just love this. I think it turned out super cool. Let me show you what it looks like next to the other feather painting. So here they are side by side, and they look really cool together, I think, but they are very different. So the one on the right is very much cool and bold and lots of contrast, whereas on the left it's warmer and softer and it's more kind of natural looking. Also, it's just interesting to see the different shape of the feathers that came out, especially at the tip. This one's much more pointy, and this one curved around more round. And then this one is more straight throughout, where this one kind of bulged in the middle a little bit. And then on this one we had kind of the blue vein running down, which worked perfectly in the quill. And this one, our color patterning stayed very much over on the side. So what's cool is that both of these do look like real and realistic feathers. So it's not like one is better or worse. I think that's the cool thing about this technique, is that you never know exactly what you're going to get, but no matter how it comes out, it looks like a really cool feather. Thank you so much for joining me for this second angel wing feather pour video. I hope it has inspired you to try something new. I think you'll be seeing more of these feathers from me in the future, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Bye guys!